Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am your host here today, Amanda Farmer. I am a Strata lawyer. We are going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. We're heading out to LinkedIn. We're going out to YouTube as well. I am here for your weekly wrap up. What has been going on in our Strata world this week? What have you been up to? I'd love to hear it. If you'd like to share it with me, what has been challenging you this week, you can go ahead and pop that into the comments here. Have you had a win this week that you would like to share here with us? What has gone fabulously well for you? We don't hear that too often in our space, the wins that we're having. And so it's a good opportunity to share them here on live. I would love to learn about your wins for the week. I am here in my country home in the studio here. Some of you got a little bit of an insight into my country home this week. There was a newspaper article that featured me and my family, our shift from city living to country living. It was featured in the Daily Telegraph this week on Tuesday. That was all a bit of a whirlwind. Got contacted by a journalist on Sunday afternoon, gave some comments, had a photographer over on Monday afternoon, and then there we were, front and center of the Daily Telegraph with a double page spread, had the pups in there too. If you haven't seen that one, I have posted a link to the article and some pics here on the Facebook page and over on LinkedIn if you want to go and check that one out. Whole heap of fun. Heading down the street now in our small country town with our baseball caps on so we don't get accosted by all of the fans in our small town now, having been minor celebrities for a day. Lots of fun. If you are coming on in live, lots of eyeballs coming in live today. Feel free to give me a hello. I'm watching these comments here. As always, if you're catching the replay, I would love to hear from you as well with a hello. I really appreciate those of you who come around. This time slot doesn't suit you for a live chat, but you want to come around later on this evening or over the weekend and catch up on what's been happening in the week in Strata, then that's awesome. Give me a hello here in the comments. Danielle is saying hi. Good to see you, Danielle. Howdy, John Canning. Always good to have you here with us. Cheryl is here saying hello. Hey, Cheryl. Natalie is here saying good Friday, Amanda. It is a good Friday, Natalie. I hope it's been a good one for you too. Hey, Megan. Good to see you. Oh, we are all coming on in, ready to get into it. This week's podcast episode, I have heard from a few of you actually about how much you enjoyed this. Some of you have said to me, great timing, Amanda. We have just tabled a quote for some waterproofing work in our building. And we, exactly as you and Daniel said on the podcast, we were shocked at how expensive that was, how involved it was. But now, having listened to your podcast, having heard Daniel's advice, we understand why that is the case. So that's become a really helpful resource for our building. What was the podcast all about? Daniel Caruana of Danreg Group joined me to explain how the Design and Building Practitioners Act is increasing costs and wait times for owners in our residential strata buildings who need waterproofing work done. We talked about whether this legislation that was really intended to apply to new buildings has a place regulating remedial work in our aging buildings. Daniel talks about the role that he says owners can play and should play, in his view, in contributing to the proper maintenance of their waterproof membranes. Getting educated, other words that Daniel uses, understanding why your contractor, why your consultant may be recommending a certain type of membrane. It's really important that you're across that background, those reasons, so you can then be explaining to owners at a general meeting when you're raising money, these days quite a lot of money to do this work, why it is that you are recommending this path. And we talk about the implications for building insurance, rising premiums. Some buildings, Daniel mentions, are not able to get insurance because they haven't properly maintain their waterproof membranes, or there is a membrane in need of replacement and it's all just taking too long. So, really important episode. It's one that I've been wanting to do for a while with an expert like Daniel. Not our first chat on the podcast. If you like that one, you can head back and listen to our earlier chat. I mentioned that one in the episode. But that one this week is 374. Has the Design and Building Practitioners Act gone too far with its strict rules for remedial waterproofing? So head over and check that one out. More of you coming in. Excited about today's topic, perhaps. I am going to get into that very soon. If you don't think it's here on the page, I think I've only announced the topic in the email that went out earlier today. If you don't get my emails on a Friday afternoon letting you know what we're going to be chatting about, what time we're going live, then do make sure that you are on our email database. You can sign up over at the website, yourstrataproperty.com.au. If you think you're on the database, but you're not getting emails all of a sudden, feel free to just post me a note, either here in the comments, or you can send a private message to the page, letting me and the team know that you want us to track down that problem and make sure that you are getting those regular emails so you know what's happening here on Friday Live each week. Heading back around to those hellos, Gordon is here. Happy Friday. Indeed, Gordon. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Jan is here saying hi. Maureen is here saying hi, everyone. Wendy's here. Hi, Megan and Amanda. Lovely to see you, Wendy. Sean is here. Home early. Excellent. Good to know. And Daniel's a great guy. You're not the first person to say that, Sean. Over on LinkedIn, Daniel's getting a lot of kudos there for the contribution that he's making. Hey, Edna. Lovely to have you here with us. Okay. Now, I was talking about our topic for today. Went out on the email broadcast this afternoon, giving you a heads up. I am shortly going to be talking about this practice, this trend, I think I called it, of owners corporations making bylaws that attempt to absolve them of responsibility to repair and maintain certain parts of the common property, colloquially known as absolution bylaws. Sometimes that's the name of the bylaw when I see it in a bundle of registered bylaws. Sean's already saying here, I love this one. Well, I'm going to put the call out, Sean. I know that you're an experienced manager. You've been in the sector for a while. I'm going to put the call out to our strata managers to let me know if you see a lot of these. I'm seeing more and more of them. And I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that at some point in the past, I don't know who, I don't care who, some strata lawyer has come up with this idea that owners corporations should put in place these absolution bylaws, and this person's come up with a template, has recommended it to a bunch of strata managers, and it's ended up being adopted by various buildings, sometimes in a way that I think might be effective and enforceable, but based on those that have been coming across my desk lately, I think some of them have problems. And I'm going to talk about that today with you. I have a couple of examples of these bylaws or parts of these bylaws to show you. I'm going to take you over to some relevant legislation and a case to just get us excited for our Friday afternoon, talking about strata law cases, tribunal cases. That is what we love to do. And I'm glad you're here with us, and you're with it too. Sean is saying, I think someone read things in an interesting way and it's opened up the mini floodgates. Okay, tell me more, Sean. And if you are a manager, if you're a committee member, if you're an owner and you know that you have one of these absolution bylaws, one of these bylaws that attempts to absolve the owners corporation of responsibility for certain parts of the common property, if you've got one in place in your building or you've heard about them, jump on in the comments here and let me know. Okay, before I do that, however, I am going to take you over to this week's article of the week, article of the fortnight, some media attention, not to strata, but I think linked to what might be happening in our sector. I read an article that was talking about a practice which to me was all too familiar. I'm going to bring the article up on the screen here, and Mina has a link for you if you want to go and check it out yourself. Might see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Have a look at the heading there. This was just on Wednesday, came out in via ABC News. A conveyancer is calling out real estate referral payments, claiming that they're unethical and could hurt home buyers. So see this little ad here? We've given out over $1 million in cash to our referral partners. And this is a particular conveyancing firm, I think in Victoria, advertising its referral program on its website. So this is conveyancers who are providing legal advice to people who are buying and selling property in Queensland. They run a referral program where they pay real estate agents and other businesses to recommend their services to other clients. Now, I've said this is eerily familiar because you might remember just a few weeks ago here on Friday Live, also went out on the podcast, my conversations with Michael Kleinschmidt, lawyer of Bugden Allen Graham Lawyers, talking about similar setups that those who provide services to our strata managers have. We talked about it in the context of insurance commissions, but Michael went a little bit further to refer to other arrangements that maybe some lawyers might have with strata managers. Since that chat, I've been hearing from owners who are sending me copies of their agency agreements where there are disclosures about all sorts of partnerships, referral programs, commission payments that may pass between strata managers and certain service providers. It's certainly not limited to our insurance sector. So there were some comments made in this article that were very similar to the comments that Michael Kleinschmidt was making when we were having our chat. Now, apparently this practice of conveyancers and other legal service providers paying referral fees to real estate agents, that practice is illegal in Western Australia, in South Australia, in Tasmania. The ABC's been told that referrals are rife in other parts of the country where it's permitted as long as it's declared. Now, Michael spoke about that practice of disclosure that we have in our strata sector, where our strata managers, many of them appear to be comfortable with this practice of taking commissions or referral payments because that practice is disclosed. I asked Michael the question, does disclosure cure this potential for a conflict of interest or any ethical issue? Michael didn't seem to think that it did. And you'll read in this article that one of the Victorian conveyancers who is blowing the whistle on this conduct says that disclosure is not good enough. He says the words, "I think they should be outraged." Michael Kleinschmidt was using the words, "I think you owners should be mad as hell." So it may be the time. This is the zeitgeist, I'm saying, where these kinds of practices are being identified. They're being called out. You read further on in this article, I won't go through the whole thing, but there is a comment from the Queensland Law Society who says, this is the Law Society's Senior Counsel on Ethics, Shane Budden, believes that the issue has grown to a point where many real estate agents won't recommend a solicitor for conveyancing work without getting paid. He says that there could be conflicts of interest. And there's also further down in this article, the comment that you either go broke or you put up your fees. So again, we're hearing from a sector where prices are being pushed down. Conveyancing very hard these days to be charging significant amounts and maybe enough for conveyancing services because there's quite a lot of competition out there. We've got our conveyancers saying, look, if I don't pay these fees, then I can't compete in the market. That's certainly something that we hear from our strata managers as well. If I don't have these commissions, then I'm going to have to put my fees up and then I'm not going to be able to compete in the market. So I just thought that was a really interesting example of a different but related property industry that is struggling with wrapping its head around how these arrangements work and whether they are appropriate or not. And a lot of those same things that we were talking about here a few weeks ago, and I know that conversation is continuing. Those things are being talked about in that space as well. So I always find that we can get a little bit insular in strata. Lawyers can get a little bit insular. Full stop. Strata lawyers even more so. So wherever we can, as business owners, as advocates for the sector, as those contributing to the conversation, we can open up our minds a little bit broader and see how others might be talking about, might be dealing with, might be the perspective that they might have on these issues. That can often be enlightening for us. Many more of you coming in and saying hi. I am scrolling back up through those comments. Sean, I see your comments there on the absolution bylaws. Sean saying, could it have been an info post on some info site which has been misinterpreted? Yes, so this practice of perhaps owners corporations believing that they could absolve themselves easily of responsibility for the common property. Maybe that was posted somewhere on an info site somewhere and might have been misinterpreted. Yes, perhaps. I'm certainly coming to our in-depth discussion on absolution bylaws, what they are and how they might be put together legally. You haven't missed it if you're just coming on in. I am just going to switch one of these lights off because I've got a setting sun here and I realize that I'm in fluoro at the moment. Lisa is here saying hello from Melbourne. Hey, Lisa, nice of you to be here. Sean saying contractors needing to pay a fee to join a partnership program where they provide information articles to the strata manager, then also have to pay 10% on each owner's corporation invoice to the strata manager. Yeah, well, I think you're articulating the kind of arrangements that we have been talking about, Sean, for sure, and that are being called out in the real estate sector as well. Second Sean here today. He's become Sean from Dulwich Hill. Great to have you here with us, Sean, as second Sean. John saying, oh, those comments are moving quick. John saying, do they send standover men to control those conveyancers complaining publicly? Well, that's the thing, and that's why we talk about having whistleblowers and those who are brave enough to stand up and call out what they see to be bad practices in their sector. Sometimes it's those who are in the sector themselves, providing the service and seeing their colleagues who are taking these referral fees, and sometimes it's somebody else from outside of or parallel to the sector, as you have heard Michael Kleinschmidt as a lawyer calling out some of these practices between strata managers and service providers. I'm not sure about the standover men, John. Maureen saying some stratas have sub companies that they try to make owners use to get work done. Yep, definitely. Kristen, scrolling back up, Kristen saying so much conflict. Can't even think how anyone thinks it's a good idea to take the recommendation of a strata management company for a conveyancer. The story just gets bigger. So this story was about real estate agents recommending that their purchasers then go on to seek the services of a particular conveyancer, and the conveyancer then paying for those services. So the whole concept is, and from a legal point of view, the concept is, how do you know that person is the best person for the job? You want to go to the best lawyer, you want to go to the best conveyancer, you want to be able to make that choice. You don't necessarily want that conveyancer or that lawyer to be curtailing or changing their advice to you if that advice is going to impact the relationship that conveyancer or that lawyer has with the real estate agent. All of the same issues come up in strata, and it comes up most clearly when I have lot owners who come to me and say, Amanda, I want to bring an application against my owner's corporation. They are managed by XYZ strata company. I've contacted these other two strata lawyers and they've told me that they have a conflict because they get a lot of work from XYZ strata company. So they won't actually engage in suing an owner's corporation that is managed by XYZ strata company. They just don't want to go near it. Now, that is not a legal conflict of interest. That is what these lawyers have decided is a commercial conflict of interest. And I imagine they have concerns that if they take on these lot owner clients and sue owners corporations managed by a particular strata management company, then they will no longer get work from that strata management company. I hear that all the time. all the time. And it's part of the reason why I've devoted my practice now to being a lot owner advocate, because I believe lot owners need to have access to proper, qualified, experienced strata lawyers. I certainly have no commercial conflicts. Yes, I do work for strata managers, but they are certainly not my bread and butter work. And I know some lawyers are particularly concerned about preserving that work and therefore not giving access to lot owners, not giving lot owners access to their services at risk of putting those relationships in the back seat. And hello to you, by the way, Kristen. Jacqueline saying questionable ethics, question mark. John saying organized crime would be involved with the real estate sector quite extensively, you'd think. Yes. Maureen saying some strata companies. Oh, I think I already saw that one come up. Okay. Yes, it is definitely better to have independence. I agree, Kristen. And I'm getting a hello from Sean. We have the Sean trifecta. Sean B is here. Over to you, trifecta of Sean's. Welcome, everybody. Okay, well, I think we're warmed up. I think we are warmed up and ready to jump in to our topic of the day. We did talk about earlier this week on the podcast with Daniel, we've talked about it many times before, the increasing expense of common property remedial work. Increasing complexity with our Design and Building Practitioners Act in New South Wales, expense because of rising construction costs, headache because we have committee members who are busier than ever before, delay because we have limited good qualified contractors to choose from. It is just this perfect storm of problems when we're looking at necessary repair and maintenance to our common property. And we've got aging buildings. So many of us are living in, owning in buildings that need this kind of extensive and often urgent repair. So wouldn't it be nice if you as an owners corporation, as a committee, could make a decision that makes owners responsible for their own properties, including their waterproofing, including their windows, including their balcony tiles? Wouldn't it be cool if you didn't have to fund the repair, maintenance, replacement of those generally common property items? Now, there are some buildings out there, and I mentioned earlier that perhaps this has been born from the brain of some clever strata lawyer. Perhaps it's been tossed around as an idea on a forum website. There are some buildings out there who have attempted to do this, to shift responsibility for common property, which is otherwise, I think we all know, we all agree here, is otherwise the responsibility of the owners corporation, to shift that responsibility over to owners. Now, there is a way in New South Wales, I can speak to as a New South Wales strata lawyer, there is a way that you can do that. An owners corporation can decide that it is no longer going to repair and maintain a specified part of the common property. And it can decide that that's okay, that there won't be any adverse impacts from that. But that's not the only step in the process. There's a couple of other things that you need to do to make that decision effective and to make sure that that decision is not at risk of successful challenge by an owner who might decide, actually, no, I don't want to be responsible for my own windows. I don't want to be responsible for my own bathroom and waterproofing. I bought into a strata building because I know that's the responsibility of the owners corporation, and I'd like it to stay that way. And as I see more of these attempts to shift these responsibilities by various legal mechanisms, I'm also seeing more owners come to me, as I said, lot owner lawyer, come to me asking me, Amanda, how do I change this? And it's coming up in a circumstance where, for example, waterproofing has failed. There's major work that needs to be done on common property adjacent to a lot. And when the owner has gone to the committee or to the strata manager and said, hey, you need to fix this, the strata manager said, oh, actually, no, we don't. we've got one of those absolution bylaws that says we are hereby absolved, don't need to attend to these items. So, what do these absolution bylaws look like? I've got a couple of examples here for you. I will dig them out here if I can. Perhaps, if they've still here for me. Reopening some documents. Talk amongst yourselves. Sean's, talk amongst yourselves. All right, I've got one here and another one just on the way, and I will share my screen with you, just making sure that I've hidden any identifying details for our innocent strata schemes. I think I've got the right screens going now. Alrighty. Here is example number 1 of an absolution bylaw that I was looking at just recently for a member inside our online membership community. We were having a member call about this issue, and I had a set of bylaws presented to me, and my attention was drawn to this one. Short, this is it, 2 paragraphs. This is titled Absolution of Appliance Maintenance, and it refers to Section 62, subsection 3 of our 1996 Act. So that Act has since been overtaken by our 2015 Act. I'll show you the relevant section in our 2015 Act, but it essentially says the same thing as 62.3. Apparently, pursuant to this section, the owner's corporation here has deemed that it's inappropriate to repair, maintain, replace, or renew any appliance that is designed to serve a single lot within the strata scheme, regardless of whether any portion of that appliance, including motor, compressor, cabling, pipe, mounting, ducting, any other pertinent fixture of the appliance, is located on or within common property or lot property. So generally, if these items were located on the common property, and in this strata scheme in particular, I am aware that these items were actually in place before the registration of the strata plan, then they are common property items if they're located on the common property, even if they may be serving only one lot. So this bylaw is saying we acknowledge that these are common property. We've decided that it is inappropriate to repair, maintain, or replace these items. And the type of items we're talking about are these ones here in the list. That is it. That is all that this bylaw says. Maybe you might have picked up that there's kind of a missing piece here. If the owner's corporation is not going to repair, maintain, or replace these things, then who is? There's no clause here that says that lot owners must do it. Seems to be, to me, a missing piece in that bylaw. I rarely see them this simple, but that is one that I was looking at earlier this week. I'm going to show you, before I sort of dig into the reasons why I think this bylaw is a little bit strange and maybe open to successful challenge, I'm going to show you another one that is more detailed. Layla is here. Hey, Layla, saying inappropriate is a strange term to use. Yes, there is a reason why that word is used, Layla. And when I take you over to show you the legislation, you'll be able to see that there's a reason why that word has been used. I will stop sharing that one and attempt now to share with you a more detailed version. Once again, some things redacted to protect the innocent. This one runs for quite a few pages, and I'm not going to go through it in huge detail. Just checking that's connected. Yep, all looking good. This one is an absolution of maintenance for lot owners' fixtures. Once again, it seems to be with these bylaws that the concept is things that seem like they might be lot property but are actually common property. We don't really want to deal with them. So we're going to require lot owners to deal with them, or at least in the case of that short 2 clauses that you saw, we're going to say that it's inappropriate for us to deal with them. So This example says that the owner's corporation be absolved from its maintenance responsibilities for certain fixtures, fittings, appliances located within the lot in the following form. Now, as I said, this one's more detailed. I think this one's a little bit more lawyerly. Perhaps this is one of the templates that's floating around. It refers to the memorandum. This one's November 2011. I'm not sure what that version looked like. And attempts to provide a guide to owners in determining maintenance responsibilities for their scheme. The intent of the bylaw is to provide definition of the maintenance responsibilities, the fixtures and fittings within a lot, and any appliances that only service a single lot. Now, there's a description further on about what kinds of things we're talking about, and some of these things are certainly common property. So here, again, we're quoting section 62.3 of the Act. I'll demystify that one for you in a minute. Any item specified in this bylaw that it's afforded cover for damage due to an insurable event shall still be protected by that insurance. In this bylaw, the owner's corporation is still retaining maintenance responsibility for structural elements, integrity, and general safety of the building. I'm just going to keep scrolling down here. Essentially, the bylaw just goes on to say what are the kinds of things that we are not, as an owner's corporation, responsible for. Decorative finishes, cornices, skirting boards, architraves, internal door jambs, wall tiles wherever they are. So even if they're in the bathroom or they're on a boundary wall, floor tiles. These are the kinds of things that, yes, would otherwise be common property. So this owner's corporation is saying we are no longer going to be responsible for these. Bathrooms, en-suites, laundry areas, kitchen areas. Just move through that quickly. Floor coverings, floor tiles, floorboards, balcony and courtyard areas. This, if I'm right from memory, this bylaw has come from a low-rise, almost villa style or townhouse style development. So that's why we sort of see things like courtyards and plants and grassed areas may not always be suitable to high-rise. So quite a lot of things here that some things may otherwise be lot property anyway. Garage door motors, if they were installed post strata plan registration, then they might be lot property anyway. But there's definitely some things mentioned here that are otherwise common property. That's it. A lot of the bylaw is dedicated, most of the bylaw is dedicated to telling us all of the things that this owner's corporation is no longer going to be responsible for. Now, once again, if my memory serves me correctly, aside from the introduction and the intent here, there is actually no clause that shifts over to lot owners the responsibility for then dealing with these items. So the owner's corporation is saying, we ain't going to do it, but it begs the question, who is? Who is going to do it? And do we even need to nominate someone to do it? Or can we just walk away from this responsibility to deal with items that are common property? So, in taking you speedily through those couple of examples, I think I've raised a few questions, which I'll now go ahead and answer for you. If you have any comments so far, I think there's a few that have come through. Sean saying, we passed a common property rights bylaw for the 10 lots to be responsible for sliding doors, got all 10 to sign consent forms. Sean is onto it. Sean is onto it. And you're recognizing there, Sean, the problem that may be in place for the buildings that have these two bylaws that I've just shown you. John is saying, sounds great. Basically, remove the nonsense of appearance. Right. Okay, I am going to show you the current version of this mysterious, mystical section 62.3. So you saw that in those two bylaws. That section was in our 1996 Act, no longer in place. Our 2015 Act instead has section 106.3, which really, from memory, the lawyers will tell me if I'm wrong, says the same thing that 62.3 used to say. So 106, those of you who've been here for a long time, learning about strata will know that's the section that says an owner's corporation must properly maintain, keep in a state of good and serviceable repair the common property and any personal property vested in the owner's corporation. If we go down to subsection 3, this section does not apply to a particular item of property if the owner's corporation determines by special resolution that it is inappropriate, there's that word, Layla, ding ding, determines that it is inappropriate to maintain, renew, replace, or repair, and its decision will not affect the safety of any building, structure, or common property in the strata scheme or detract from the appearance of any property in the strata scheme. Okay, so the owner's corporation has to go through this process of determining that it is inappropriate and making sure that that decision is not going to affect safety, structure, safety of any building, structure, or common property in the strata scheme. Now, if the owner's corporation can't do either of these two things, that it may be that a special resolution that is passed under section now 106 subsection 3 may be invalid. And I have seen challenges brought before the tribunal on the basis that these two requirements have not been met, cannot be met, and therefore a special resolution under 62.3 has been found to be invalid, 62.3 or 106.3. We do have one of these cases that I wanted to draw your attention to that may shed some light on the circumstances in which it would be inappropriate. I can see Layla saying, what's the definition of inappropriate? Or where a decision may affect the safety of a building or structure. And in essence, it goes to where an owner's corporation passes this kind of special resolution. If it doesn't then legally transfer that responsibility for the common property to someone else, inevitably the lot owners, then it cannot say that the decision is appropriate. It cannot say that the decision has not affected the safety of the building structure or the detracting from the appearance. It depends on what kinds of items the responsibility is being shifted for. But if you're not going to, as an owner's corporation, maintain and repair windows, common property windows, for example, and you're going to pass that responsibility on to lot owners, then you need to do that via the proper legal mechanism for passing on responsibility to lot owners. What is the proper legal mechanism? Sean M. told us earlier, it is a common property rights bylaw. You are then giving lot owners the exclusive use, the special privilege. Congratulations, lot owners, you now have the special privilege of maintaining your own windows. That's common property. We ain't going to do it as an owner's corporation. You have to grant that benefit by way of a common property rights bylaw. And unless you do that, you can't say that your decision was appropriate, and you can't say that your decision will not affect safety or the structure of the building, because otherwise you've just passed a special resolution in a vacuum saying, not our problem, as my email said today, not our problem. No one's now going to look after this. That can never be an appropriate decision. That can never be a decision that is not going to affect safety when we're talking about things like windows, structural items, and waterproofing. So Layla's saying, I was thinking the same thing. Yes, so you're on the right track. And a case where that was not done properly is the case of Mullins. We do have a link to, it is a reported case, and we have a link to it for you. Just heading back to find out where I've got that one. Too many screens open today. The case of Mullins and the Owners Corporation of Strata Plan 32033. It's a 2015 case. And in those days, we had cases determined by strata adjudicators. And if there was an appeal from the adjudicator, it would go to a hearing in person before a tribunal member. And the tribunal member who decided this case was Senior Member Rosser. And those of you who are in the tribunal regularly, lawyers will know Senior Member Rosser. She knows her stuff. And this is quite a readable decision on this point about whether an owners corporation had validly passed a special resolution pursuant to what was then 62.3. Was that an appropriate resolution to pass, could that owners corporation say that the decision will not affect the safety of the building? And in shifting responsibility over to lot owners, which this owners corporation attempted to do in that case, did it do so properly? Did it do so with a common property rights bylaw? And I don't think I've mentioned this yet, and with written consent of the lot owners to make a common property rights bylaw and shift responsibility for common property over to lot owners, you need their written consent. So that case was all about common property windows. That building in the Mullins case had a special bylaw saying that it was inappropriate. The owners corporation had specially resolved to maintain common property windows in external walls of the lots in the strata plan. And that special bylaw, it was number 2, made the lot owners responsible for maintenance, renewal, repair, and replacement of those windows. Now, the owners corporation complained that the Mullinses' windows were looking pretty crap. They hadn't properly dealt with them, and they hadn't met their obligations under the bylaw. Remember, this is a bylaw that did say, unlike those couple I showed you earlier, did say that we are making lot owners responsible for the repair of windows. The Mullinses said, okay, we acknowledge that there's a special bylaw too. We acknowledge that the owners corporation has absolved itself of responsibility for these windows. But what we don't agree is that we have accepted responsibility for these windows. The only way you can make us as owners accept responsibility for these windows is by making a common property rights bylaw, and you need our written consent to accept the obligations under that bylaw. You don't have that. Senior member Rossa, as well as the adjudicator below, agreed with the lot owners and said, while this owners corporation may have made a valid special resolution under what was then 62.3, and while they may have been able in that situation to say it's inappropriate to maintain and there won't be an impact on safety because we're asking the lot owners, not asking, directing the lot owners to repair and maintain, the owners corporation didn't take that final step of actually making a common property rights bylaw, granting the owners exclusive use of those areas of the common property and requiring those owners to repair and maintain it and to obtain those owners' written consent. So Senior Member Rossa said in the case that there's nothing in the legislation that permits an owners corporation to impose on a lot owner the obligation to maintain and repair common property that has been the subject of a resolution under Section 106, subsection 3. So nothing permits an owners corporation to say, we're not going to do it, hands off, not going to repair and maintain, and immediately shift that over to the owners. The fact that the owners corporation has determined that it's inappropriate for them to repair and maintain it doesn't mean that it can just impose that obligation on lot owners without giving them exclusive use or special privilege over that area of the common property. How do you do that? You make a common property rights bylaw. Now, I've said a few times, a valid common property rights bylaw requires written consent. Something to be aware of. If you're a building that has ticked all of these boxes, yes, we want to absolve ourselves. We say it's inappropriate. Decision won't affect safety. We are shifting responsibility over to lot owners by making a common property rights bylaw. If you've missed that step of getting written consent, it may be that if enough time has passed, even without the written consent, the bylaw is still valid, especially since this Mullins decision from Senior Member Rossa. There have been other decisions from our tribunal, one in particular that I'm thinking of, that says once 2 years has passed since the making of a common property rights bylaw, the fact that you didn't get that written consent does not make the bylaw invalid, because there's a section in our legislation that says once 2 years has passed, then it's presumed that all of the conditions that needed to be fulfilled to make that bylaw valid have been fulfilled. So be careful if you're thinking about challenging a common property rights bylaw because of failure to obtain written consent. just have a look at how long that bylaw has been in place, because a couple of attempts to make those challenges on that basis have failed because of the passage of 2 years or more. So lots of comments here flowing in the chat. I haven't caught them all. I'm just going to scroll back up. I think Henry, how are you, Henry? Henry's saying, hi, Amanda. The main issues with these absolution bylaws is that they do not stipulate the standard of repair, and that the certification of said repairs is appropriate and in accordance with building standards, especially in regards to HVAC and electrical certification. Yeah, so true, Henry. And that's why this concept of, if you're not going to do it, owner's corporation, and you're going to specially resolve you're not going to do it, then you need to properly shift that responsibility over to owners. You do that with a common property rights bylaw. That concept is so important because when we sit down, whether it's lawyers or owners or managers, and think about, okay, so what should go into this common property rights bylaw? It's all of those things that you just talked about. It's about, all right, lot owner has to repair and maintain. How do they do that? What's the standard? It's proper and workmanlike. What kind of insurances do they need to have in place when that repair and maintenance work is being carried out? At what times can they do that work? It's all of the things that you would usually cover in a bylaw that's granting owners rights, privileges, and responsibilities over common property. When you miss that step, then yeah, you're right, Henry, all of those questions come up. You can't just say it's the responsibility of lot owners, we're not going to look after it, go for your life and good luck. We have these legal processes in place for a reason, and it's a good idea that they be followed. I've had a couple of owners approach me wanting to challenge these bylaws, and they've been given more specific advice that's relevant to their situations and their particular bylaws. But yeah, most of these that I'm seeing have not been drafted in that way that Senior Member Rosser has told us they need to be drafted in order to be effective. John's saying no mulling around with the Mullinses. Yep. Layla's saying, would it be 100% lot owner written consent? What if one or two did not consent? Yes, great question, Layla, because it is the written consent of the owners of the lots concerned, the owners of the lots that are being shifted that responsibility. They are the ones that have to provide their written consent. And when you're making these absolution bylaws on a building-wide basis, for all the windows in the building, for all the tiles in the building, however it is you're doing it, you're impacting all lot owners. Every lot owner is responsible under that bylaw. So yes, you would need the written consent of every lot owner. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the process of registering bylaws, you don't actually have to. Land Registry Services doesn't require you to lodge forms, written consent forms. Legislation says you got to get them, but you don't actually have to register them, which I think is a problem because these forms get lost. People forget to obtain the written consent. You think, oh yes, let's just pass the bylaw, register it, and then we'll get the consent from the owner. If they were registered, then we'd have a great ongoing record, an easily accessed record of whether or not there was written consent, but they don't have to be registered. And I mean, it's a good idea to attach them, I think, to the minutes of the meeting at which the common property rights bylaw was made. Sean's saying 100%. Yes, so all owners in those kinds of situations where you want all owners to take responsibility for their windows, for their floors, whatever it is, yes, it would be all of them. Okay, I think that conversation's continuing on that topic. Sean has asked, what if it's more than 2 years after registration of the bylaw? You're on top of it, Sean. Yes, I've addressed that one. Just be careful if you're an owner thinking about making that challenge, or if you're a committee member or a strata manager who is communicating with an owner who wants to make that challenge. It might be worth raising that as a potential issue early on. There is a case on, I think it was parking rights. I think somebody had lost, perhaps to somebody else, parking rights, and there was an argument that, well, there was no written consent for that owner to have that common property right. Tribunal, I think it was tribunal, said that that's okay. 2 years has passed, so we no longer have to worry about written consent. Layla saying, what is the point of paying strata levies? Shouldn't the strata levies then be reduced to accommodate this shift? Yeah. So it's the whole concept of community living, isn't it? Maybe this month the top floor apartment has a water leak because the roof needs to be repaired. There needs to be money spent up there. It's not affecting anybody else, but we all contribute to the cost of that repair. Maybe next month it'll be you, and it'll be your balcony doors, or it'll be your window, or it'll be your shower tiles, whatever it is. And then it will be for the owners corporation to fund that repair in your apartment. It's give and take. If you have that mindset that this is community living and that's how we work, then that makes sense to you. Not everybody has that mindset. And sometimes I see these bylaws being proposed or being relied on where you might have kind of unique setups where there might be certain units, certain apartments that are terraces and others are multi-story, or some are freestanding, and some need more attention than others. And over time, owners have decided that that's a little bit unfair. So we want to avoid having to spend a lot of money on just a few lots. Those lots have all the problems. Those lots have all the leaks. They've got the lift. They've got the whatever it is that's causing the problem. And so these bylaws come up as a possible solution to that, what is seen as a problem. Shana's saying very interesting topic. I think it's interesting too, Shana, and I like to bring to you things that I've been working on. And as I said, this has come up this week. No, it's come up twice this week. And yes, I have helped a couple of clients in this situation. Layla's asking about insurance. Would insurance still cover these issues if the responsibility has shifted? You might have seen in one of those examples that I showed you later, that more detailed one that I think was probably a legally drafted one. It actually had a clause about insurance saying that it doesn't affect the insurance. If these items are still covered by the building insurance and an insurable event happens, then the owner can still claim on the owner's corporation's insurance for that. So I think if you are going to make one of these bylaws, yes, make that really clear. Again, another reason, as I said to Henry with his point, another reason why it is so important to have these common property rights bylaws, because it just triggers you to start thinking about these issues. Oh, what are we going to do about the standard of repair? What are we going to do about insurance? Henry saying all you need is a cheap plumber to do a dodgy gas repair on an appliance and the whole block could go up. Yeah, that's the thing about that's the benefit of an owner's corporation taking responsibility for those kinds of appliance repairs where they should, where they are common property, and there has been no valid bylaw passed. There's a lot to be said for dealing with those kind of issues on a building-wide basis, for sure. So on my side of things, guys, I don't see whether your conversations are in reply to other comments. So there's all sorts of things happening over here on my side. Shana's saying, if the 2 years has passed without written consent of the owner and the OC wants to try to invalidate the bylaw by special resolution, does that mean we still need the written consent from the owner? And what happens if he won't give it? Yeah. Oh, wow. Good question, Shana. Good question. Yeah, I think you do. I think you do still need written consent if you're then going to repeal a bylaw that was never made with written consent. I don't think you get out of it. It's almost because it's what this section says, and I don't know exactly which one it is off the top of my head, but it says once 2 years has passed from the making of that bylaw, it's presumed that the written consent was obtained. So you kind of then just proceed on the assumption that there was written consent, even if there wasn't. So, yeah, if you wanted to amend or repeal that bylaw down the track, yes, you would do it by way of special resolution. And yes, you would still need the written consent from the owner. What happens if he won't give it? You've got someone in mind, Shana. If he won't give written consent, then the owner's corporation would have to prove that the written consent has been unreasonably refused. And those are words that are used in our legislation. The owner's corporation would go to the tribunal saying this owner has unreasonably refused to give their written consent, and we want an order, tribunal, that this bylaw be repealed amended or made. You can also make that kind of application for a bylaw that an owners corporation refuses to make if they're acting unreasonably. That's another session. That's another session, Shana, on unreasonable refusals and what makes a successful unreasonable refusal application. Section 149 is the section in our New South Wales law that sets out that process. Lots of cases on that one, and that one too comes up regularly. John's saying community or communist. The Strata Führer may be shocked if you really said community. I say the word community a lot, and I think I might have been criticized for using that word community here previously on a live. Not everyone's into the Strata community. Often when I'm doing media or sort of PR things, I am guided by my mentors not to use the word community because it sounds like we're all hippies. Don't use the word community, Amanda. It sounds like it's commune. No one wants to hear about that. No one wants to listen to that. I can't help it. I think it's a community. Neighborhood? What do we want to call it? Sean saying definitely worth putting into the records of the owners corporation, which will not need to be held for more than 7 years. Yeah, well, that's why I say attach it to the minutes. And while this is not in the legislation, I'm trying to remember where I've said it, what piece of education I've said it, maybe here on live before. I strongly recommend minute books. We don't get rid of minute books, showing my age. We don't have minute books anymore, but minutes, we never get rid of minutes. You don't get rid of minutes after 7 years, right? Strata managers always hang on to minutes. It's one of those documents that, unless you have been expressly instructed to destroy minutes, and I would be concerned about a building that gives that express instruction, then they should be kept forever. And so attaching your consent forms to minutes is probably a safest way to go about it. And Jennifer says it is a commune. It's a commune, perhaps. And Sean's a Strata comrade. All right, cool. Let's do it. Whatever suits. Speaking of media, I'm going to be on the radio tomorrow. I will be live with Michael McLaren on Sydney's 2GB tomorrow, I think around 11:30 a.m. is the plan, depending on how the schedule goes. It's something that I have done a few times before, chatting about topical Strata issues and then taking some callers. Michael's producer often says to me, Amanda, are you happy to take callers? And I say, is that a serious question? Is that a serious? Of course. I love it. Love it. So if you're not doing anything, tomorrow morning around 11:30, tomorrow being Saturday, around 11:30 a.m. if you're in Sydney, tune into Radio 2GB, Michael McLaren Show, which I think kicks off at about 9 a.m. And we're going to be talking Strata. You got a question that I haven't answered here on live? See if you can give us a ring and chat with me on air. If you ever do ring in and you're a listener to the podcast or you're a Friday liver, then let me know. Let me know while we're chatting. I would love to know that it's you. If it's one of the Seans, you'll have to let me know which Sean. I am wrapping up for the weekend. Thank you so much for being here with me. Leonie's asking me, could you discuss NCAT? Where would you like me to start, Leonie? Let me know where you'd like me to start with NCAT, and we'll put that one on the list. Yes, Sean, radio, so 20th century. But let me tell you who's best placed to deliver good radio content. A podcaster. My podcasting skills get put to good use when I'm taking those calls on live radio, let me tell you. Cheryl saying, thanks again, as usual, terrific information. Good to hear. Those comments are coming through fast. I have missed a lot of them. If I didn't get around to saying hello to you, hello and welcome and good evening. Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely weekend in Strata, and I will catch you all next time. Bye for now.